I am a Black woman business owner. I believe anything is possible. I see opportunities when others see impossibility. I take risks. I am focused. I know that nothing is unrealistic. I contribute to something bigger than myself. I create, I learn, I grow. I love what I do. I know it is never too late to start living my dreams. I am a Black woman business owner. She Prints It actually started just as an idea to start a t-shirt line. Like, I wanted to create t-shirts that empowered Black women, that spoke to our culture, and that allowed us to be Black women first before the titles that we hold for everybody else in the world, like wife and mother and all that stuff. I just wanted us to say she is me and celebrate that. And this was before the dropship era, before, all these companies that will print your stuff for you. So I really had to go out and seek different companies. But because I wanted to do some customization and I had a minimal capital startup, i.e. sister didn't have no money. I realized that I could not afford to work with so many different companies with their minimums. So I realized that I had to learn the business. And in the process of learning the business, I spent years under a different company name, just really learning the different print methods and services and offerings. I am out in this world, networking, meeting amazing women in business, and realizing that they have nothing that really speaks to their story, right? Nothing outside of maybe a business card that celebrated their excellence, that highlighted their mission and their brand. And so in that process, I realized that God wasn't calling me to create just a t-shirt line. He was calling me to create a culture where women in business can brand like a boss and still maintain their unique appeal. It was really because we were in this era also where Black women were the fastest growing sector in small business. But we had the least amount of earnings, the least amount of capital, the least amount of sales. We didn't have teams. We didn't have anything that really made us stand out. And so I was like, I need to do something so that companies can look as good as they are. And naturally, She Prints It was birthed out of that because it was a literal statement. Like, she was me. It was a solo gig before I had a team. And I was out here printing the visions of brands that, and women that look like me. So when I initially started this entrepreneurial journey in the print industry, I was still working full time at a retail corporation, and I was working really hard to climb the ladder with the idea that they were funding my dreams. And what I find is that a lot of times we mislead ourselves to think that somehow, for me, I should say, I kept giving more and more of myself to this company and less of me to my dreams. And I say that because so often we get so caught up in the money. And my job was the money. It was the capital that was going to allow me, but it didn't give me the freedom to fully operate in the way God intended for me to. But I couldn't see that. And I think that's the power of faith, right? Some people jump off the cliff, other people get pushed off. And so for me, I'm constantly climbing this ladder. And I'm doing it because I'm saying I also want to make space for more people who look like me, because they didn't have any Black people in leadership whatsoever. I was the first Black female in leadership at this company, and it all came crashing down. I got another promotion. The white employees said that they weren't going to work for this N-word, and they filed a ethics complaint against me because they said I was smiling at them too much, and I was saying their name like their mom says their name, and so many other ridiculous things. But I am so grateful that that happened, that eventually I was terminated, because that was God pushing me off the cliff. See, I kept trying to elevate in this corporate space, thinking that somehow the more money I make there, that the more I can fund my dreams. And I realized that I was failing myself trying to fund myself, because I was moving in my plan and not in God's purpose. And so fortunately enough, that company let me go. The first company that I started with a partner dissolved, and I had this amazing coaching session with God, and I just asked him to give me 9 months. And I don't know if I thought I was having a baby, but I asked for 9 months to make something happen, and if it didn't, that I would go back to find a job. So often people say that faith without work is dead, but people forget that faith is work, right? It requires a lot of convincing of yourself to keep pushing through. And so that first year, 2 years, I mean, even today, it was very hard. I was doing this by myself in a small room in my home, trying to make the best out of it, trying to figure out how do I structure a business that still looks like a thriving, successful, growing business, that didn't appear to be a home-based business, right? Which is a whole nother conversation. But I realized that I just really needed to connect to my community, and there was success because I spoke out loud the things I desired. I don't subscribe to moving in silence. When I wanted something and I needed something, I spoke it into the universe, and God positioned people to help me. And so one of those amazing people is the owner of the Black Dot bookstore, for example. In the beginning, I didn't have anywhere to meet clients, and I despised the idea of meeting them at different gas stations or, just like shopping centers and random places. I wanted stability for my business, and I needed stability for my customers, right? And so I was fortunate enough to just speak it in conversation that I need a safe space. And the owner of Black Dot bookstore said, hey, you can come here, like your customers can come here, they can pick up their orders.
Funny, I knew her mom long before I knew her, and then I met her and didn't know that that was her mom. I just remember when I met her and she said, I do t-shirts. And actually she did an event in here, and that might be how I met her, because she did an event in Black Dot. And she had her stuff laid out. So I gave her a shot, and the t-shirts were really good.
And so it was community that made it a slightly simpler process, but it was definitely challenging. Still the trials and errors of figuring out, how am I going to do all of this by myself while still taking care of my family, right? It was quite the journey. I didn't hire a team for the first 3 years. Being a wife and a mom are definitely titles that I take pride in and I hold dear and near to my heart, but they don't define me. And I think the one thing that God blessed me with was a partner that understood that I needed to operate in my happiness, that I needed to show up in the world as my authentic self so that I can show up in excellence for my family. I can't make it to every event that my kids have at their schools, right? Sometimes I'm traveling and I can't be there. I have other obligations, and mommy guilt kicks in here and there, but The reality of it is that I'm trying to structure a life that when they grow up, they can say, I saw my mom living out her dreams. So for me, it has not been as challenging as it may be for some of my peers, because my husband is the ultimate supporter. I feel like if I don't keep pushing forward after all that he sacrificed to support me to follow my dreams, that's when my family and my marriage is in jeopardy. He wants me to win. Sometimes it feels like more than I want myself to win. She Printed was profitable almost immediately because I had very little overhead and I had built some amazing relationships. And so my relationships opened the door for people to trust me with their visions and their brands. And so very early on, and still to this day, the business is heavily referral based. Most of our clientele comes from existing customers trusting us to share their friends and family with us. And so when the pandemic happened and people needed to transition to face masks, we had this huge campaign. We called and emailed every customer we had, and we were like, listen, your face mask is your new t-shirt. That's how you market your brand. That's how people will know you, because everybody in the world will have to wear a face mask. You want to give this to your customers. And we just kind of gave them the spiel, and they were like, well, what else do you do? And it just opened up so much opportunity. We took that time to get our WBENC certification. Corporations started to really look to us for resources. We did more pitch competitions, and it just took off from there. And here we are at year 3, and we are printing for companies like IHG and Morehouse College School of Medicine, and some of the other larger brands, Southern Company, Georgia Power. Who knew that the little girl from Cabrini Green would be the go-to for these major corporations so that they can also show up and brand like a boss. So I discovered TSP through the free group initially, and I can't recall who introduced me to it, but I joined the group, and I was one of those lurkers. I didn't post much. I just looked around to see what was going on, and someone else told me about the mastermind program. And initially I said, okay, I'm going to join this. It was really one of those things that was impulsive out of nowhere. And it is absolutely one of the best decisions I could have ever made for my business, because TSP has taught me that there is no ceiling. Like when I thought that 7 figures was the goal, 8 figures was the goal, they're like, no. It's 9, there's 10. It is endless possibilities. I learned to not just focus on the number of my industry and realize that that's my money too. So to say that I'm in a $1 billion industry is different than saying that I'm building a $1 billion business. And TSP showed me that that's more accurate to what I'm creating. I'm not just a piece of the industry, I am the industry. As I look at my journey, I think what I'm most proud of is that I did it. So many people never really live out their truest potential, their dreams, their purpose, because they're stuck just at the idea. And I'm just so grateful that even though I had no idea what I was doing and I wasn't sure that it was going to work, I did it. And every day I woke up and I just kept doing it. I didn't know if I was doing it wrong or right, but I was doing it. And that I'm so proud of, because my legacy that I want to leave behind is to just do it. Believe in you. Believe in what God has placed you on this earth to do. Trust your gut. Trust and believe in yourself, even if nobody else does. It only requires you to keep moving forward. And so whatever that looks like for any person, my children, my nieces and my nephews, people who don't know me from the man in the moon, I want them to look at my story and say, I'm just gonna keep pushing through. And whatever it is on the other side of this is what God's plan is for me, and I deserve it and I've earned it. So just keep pushing. That is what I'm most proud of myself for, and that's the legacy that I want to leave behind. Never give up on you, because you're worth it.